I didn't want to believe the facts at first. My mind was rationalizing it, playing tricks on me. I mean, who can protect themselves from betrayal? The day your brother wakes up and plans to do you dirty, there's no defense against that. All my people were telling me, Ice, just put the green light out on him. Everybody knows Baby D crossed you. Cats are only giving him a pass because he's your friend. I was even more pissed because my daughter had been in harm's way, but still I didn't want to order this dude killed. After some street therapy, some common words from my closest friends, I chilled down a bit, but the situation was still very volatile. 3 weeks later, we were in line outside the Palace Theater. We were 5 deep. I had 4 other guys with me, and I was also carrying a .380 pocket light. L.A. is not like New York. Everybody carries guns. L.A. is the wild fucking West. There's heat always. It affects the way you move. You got to handle life like that. Any argument can turn into a shootout. So we were at the club and I got my .380 in my front pocket. We were on high alert because memories of the robbery was still fresh in everyone's minds. Yo, one of my boys said, dude is standing right behind us. I turned. Baby D was about 40 feet behind us with a girl. The clown had the nerve to send the girl up to us in the line. He said, tell Ice I want to talk to him. I nearly flipped. What? I said. You tell that bitch-ass nigga if he got something to say to me to come up here and talk to me. It was a standoff. He thought I was about to walk back to him. And honestly, if he had walked up to me and all my boys being strapped, some unforgivable shit might have went down right there in front of the Palace Theater. But he didn't move, and I didn't move. I told my friends, come on, let's break the fuck out. We just had to pimp past it. I probably saved Baby D's life right then and there. If I'd even given the nod to my boys, it would have gone down on some OK Corral type shit. A few days later, I confronted Baby D. I called him up from my office at Coroner Records. Yo, I'm not even angry at you, man, I said. I'm just hurt. But I got bigger things to deal with right now. Nah, man, it wasn't me, he said. Niggas is spreading shit about me. I got bigger moves to make with my life. Baby D never copped to it. He couldn't cop to it. But we all knew what he'd done. The next morning, I jetted out to New York to start shooting my first season of Law & Order SVU. While I was on location in Manhattan, I got the call from my boy Shawnee Sean back in L.A. The streets had caught up to Baby D. He was found murdered with 2 shells in his dome. Rumor had it, he'd robbed some big-timers of their drug stash, and these dudes didn't waste any time exacting their revenge. I learned a lesson that day, a real jewel. Keep your eyes peeled for every sign of betrayal. I mean, there were little hints of disloyalty from Baby D that I ignored. Truthfully, I didn't want to see them. A lot of times in life you'll run into snakes and assholes, and you'll feel it's your job to straighten them out. But remember this. If a dude is a snake to you, odds are he's a snake to everybody. That's what we call his get down. Eventually, he's going to cross the wrong person. You don't have to make it your job to be the hand of God. 13. After the setup, I knew I had to close my circle. I had to tighten up the people I considered worthy of trust. Right after that heavy situation with Baby D, everything in my life flipped. There was upheaval on every level, physical, professional, romantic. First off, I permanently relocated from Los Angeles to New York. Second, I was starting a new job at NBC. And though I didn't realize it right away, my relationship with Darlene was coming to an end. In New York, my life became all about work. I didn't have a lot of time to ruminate or feel bad about our relationship ending. I was losing myself in my new job, working harder than ever as I leapt into my new role on Law & Order SVU. I'd always had a fondness for New York. I'd had a solid connection to the city ever since I linked up with Africa Islam, Grandmaster Caz, Melly Mel, and the other New York hip-hop pioneers. Now, I was not only moving to the Big Apple, I was heading into the cast of probably the definitive New York TV franchise of our time. Right away, I fell in love with the show. There's nothing like shooting on location on the New York streets. People walk up to you in between takes, telling you whatever's on their minds. New Yorkers don't give a fuck. They're not starstruck. They'll tell you if they think you're the bomb. They'll tell you if they think you're whack. But mostly, overwhelmingly, we get mad love from New Yorkers when we're out on locations. The streets and buildings of Manhattan have such a presence, like another character actor on the show, both on the original Law & Order and Special Victims Unit. I don't think I'd like my job on SVU as much if we didn't do so many location shoots. Acting in a closed room, at least for me, sometimes feels boring and corny. You want to go out in the streets and see the people wave and hear them holler at you. My debut season on SVU, we were out doing scenes in the middle of Madison Avenue at first daylight, before the rush hour madness makes it impossible to shoot, and people were stopping on every corner to watch. We were closing down sections of Central Park, throwing our lines back and forth, standing over pretend corpses in the grass. That was a trip. When I joined the show, they had this backstory written for my character, Detective Tutuola. Finn's parents were supposed to be Black Panthers. I was an officer who studied for a law degree, but decided not to take the bar exam. I mulled all that over, trying to let it seep into my consciousness. But none of that shit was really helping me with the character. At the end of the day, we found another motivational hook. One of the producers took me aside. "Ice," he said, "you don't really like the cops, right?" "No, man, I don't." "But you admit you need them, right?" "Yeah." "So that's your role on this show, play the cop that we need." When you see me running around chasing fools on SVU, that's exactly the mantra I keep in my head. Play the cop we need. Whenever I show up on set, it's like I'm a little kid making believe I'm the police. There's really nothing more complicated to it than that. I'm no method actor. I never spent months riding around with real-life NYPD detectives to get inside their brains, to turn myself into a pretend version of them. Hell no, I'll break it down. Finn is just Ice-T pretending to be police. All my scenes, all my lines are filtered through my own personal perspective. And the producers and writers are very responsive to me. If they write a scene for me and I say, "No, that's not how I feel," or "I would never say that shit," depending on how essential the dialogue is, the writers may change it. One reason SVU has become the most successful of the Law & Order shows is the fact that we're truly an ensemble cast. The chemistry between us is great. All the stars and co-stars have such clear identities. We're not cartoons, but we're neatly delineated. There's very little ambiguity to our roles, and in the world of weekly TV shows, audiences connect with that kind of clarity. Mariska Hargitay's character, Liv Benson, is supposed to be the child of rape. That defines her mindset and makes her super sensitive to the victims. Chris Maloney, as Elliot Stabler, is defined primarily by his children, so he cycles almost every case through the lens of being a father. Plus, he's got major anger issues. Richard Belzer as Munch thinks every fucking thing is a massive conspiracy. He's very well-read and verbose, plus he's a world-class wise-ass. And I'm the guy on the squad who was supposed to have previously been an undercover narc. I'm point blank, grew up in the streets, and I don't give a fuck for niceties. If we grab some child molester, I'm likely to give him a smack in the face as we shove him in the Crown Vic. I'm soft for the little kid victims, but I'm not too subtle or sensitive when it comes to any of the sexual predators we've got to lock up. Those are 4 very clear personality types. They set up 4 different points of view. When you put me together with Chris, you know that he's the rageaholic, but if he crosses some legal boundaries, I've got his back. When I'm working one-on-one with Mariska, she's going to get sensitive, but I'm more like the no-nonsense cop. When I'm working with my partner Bells, if a perp starts running, I'm jumping over fences and bouncing off the hoods of cars. I'm more or less the muscle, the henchman for the whole crew. Even when Chris gets out of pocket, sometimes the writers have me trying to tame Elliot's anger by getting in his face. I love working with Mariska. She's a real pro, cool as hell, and hilarious. When I'm doing scenes with Chris, it can get explosive. 2 hard asses butting heads. With Belzer, I get to roll my eyes and say sarcastic shit. Our writers give me a lot of good one-liners to use on his ass. Bells and me are more like a traditional comedy team within the boundaries of a cop show. With a truly ensemble cast, depending on the writing of a given episode, any one of us can take the reins and run with it. Actually, that's the way that the show's writers shuffle the deck to give people days off. We have another trick of the trade, called tandem episodes, that we'll do if they're trying to shoot a certain number of shows and we don't have enough weeks. It's like cutting a cake in two. They'll take half the crew with one group, half with another, and we'll shoot 2 shows simultaneously. In that 1 8-day period, Mariska and I may be the leading roles in one show, and Chris and Bells will do another show. Someone will cover for us saying Finn is in court testifying, but that's just because I'm working on another set full time. I've had a bunch of episodes where I get the starring role, and it works. The writers have written some great pieces based around Finn and his son, who came out of the closet, which Finn had a hard time accepting. I also had an episode where I was butting heads with Ludacris. In real life, Chris is my man, and we had fun on the set, me playing detective and him playing a young cold-blooded murderer. I had another starring role recently in a show about murders among different immigrants in New York, all of whom had so-called anchor babies to gain U.S. citizenship. I can carry the weight if they ask me to be the star. If they gave me an episode where I'm the lead, and I didn't pull it off, trust me, they wouldn't write one again.